Relax your...
You're pushing me! This is rape! This is rape! This is rape! Let's relax.
Stop fighting with
Let's
me.
relax.
Stop fighting with me.
You may not know this, but I was a huge comic book fan when I was growing up. I'm a huge art fan in general, no matter what type. Well, maybe except for textual books, but that's beside the point. Bottom line, I loved comic books, and I still do hold a good amount of admiration for them. However, over the past few years, I've become rather disinterested in them, mainly due to the fact that now that I have my own computer, I have many more ways to entertain myself. But recently, I decided to try and get back into the whole fandom. And to be fair, I've been quite successful so far. I've gotten into Tintin, Scott Pilgrim, Archie, Bone, Dragon Ball Z, all those great comic books. However, a lot has changed in the industry since I've left. And here I am looking back at everything that I missed and saying, what the hell? You see, ever since I was a kid, and possibly even before that, politics have been shoved down our throats. I remember back in elementary school, every week, we were given these dumb Time for Kids magazines. Our teachers, our parents, hell, all the adults made sure that we were kept up to date on absolutely everything going on in Iraq, in the Ukraine crisis. I'm not even sure if I remember anything about that last one, but case in point, we really weren't allowed to sit back and ignore everything going on like normal children. We weren't allowed to just not give a shit. And in recent years, this has only gotten worse. You know what I'm talking about. All the teenagers who think it's the hip, cool thing to take absolutely everything someone says out of context and label them a misogynistic racist, and how we present ourselves as being one of the worst and most ignorant generations since the early 1900s. And this sort of shift in Western culture has been affecting our media as well, including comic books. There have always been political comics. You'd see your parents looking at them in the kitchen, having a nice little chuckle over them while drinking a cup of coffee. But now these sorts of comics have wormed their way into so many genres where they shouldn't even be relevant. This would be fine if they weren't made front and center. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. Far from it, in fact. I'm not talking about just any type of politics. I'm talking about a brand of politics coming from only the most whiny, irresponsible, racist, sexist, and most downright retarded people on the planet, the social justice warriors. SJWs have infested comic book culture, and for the past year or two have really done a number on big names in the business. For example, let's take a look at Marvel. Dear God. Yep, this isn't pretentious, stupid, or completely dumb at all. This is all very, very interesting. I mean, when I was a kid, I kept saying to my parents, look, I love all this non-stop kick-ass action with these sweet superheroes, but I think we need to take a step back and bitch about nonsensical and made-up issues. And look at that, my dreams have been fulfilled. Just look at this new Thor comic. Just look at that brilliant, awesome, completely not annoying female protagonist. What do you mean they just switched Thor out for a woman, just for the sake of having a woman? In no way is that objectifying or belittling women down to tools to promote your personal agenda. Since when have SJWs needed to follow their own rules? I know I've only been showing a few examples, but trust me, just Google image search Marvel SJW and you'll only get a taste of the amount of cuckery going on here. Now, something I want to clear up is that I don't think Western comics in general have fallen into this sort of trap. There's still a good amount of great comic books out there that have nothing to do with this debacle. However, I'm noticing a trend in big comic book companies pussifying their comics to the point where they're unreadable. Who knows, maybe this whole situation will reverse itself one day. Could all just be one big fad that will blow over. However, the damage has already been done. I can guarantee you, this will be a part of comic book history. This will be documented as one of the worst times to be a superhero fan. Remember back when the CCA was ruining comic books? Well, I'm thinking that we're going to start having another one of those. So, what is a comic book fan in the West to do? Well, there is another option. Webcomics. Basically, a webcomic is a comic on the web. The great thing about these is that anyone can make them. You don't have to be a big player, you don't have to be a professional, anyone can make anything they want. It's a great way to finally fulfill your dream and become a comic artist. Now, one would think that the social justice warriors would have brought these down even further, but actually, from what I've seen so far, they're not doing very well. I could be completely wrong, but when I see a social justice themed webcomic, it doesn't have the same sort of frustrating kind of dread associated with it. Instead, everyone points and laughs at them as they fall down flat on their face. So what's a good example of this sort of disaster of a webcomic? What's a great train wreck that everyone loves to laugh at? Well, I've got a great example here. I present to you Assigned Mail. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me give you the gist of it. Assigned Mail is a webcomic about a girl named Sophie who was assigned mail at birth. Because that's how things work, right? It's not like biology is a thing. Now, I don't think I have to go into why this webcomic is so horrible, but I'll try. Basically, it's a massive cringe fest. The amount of absolute lunacy in this garbage is off the charts. To give you an idea about how infuriating and headache-inducing this comic is to read, just take a look at this strip. There's so little self-awareness in this one, and it's enough to make me want to slit my wrists. If you want a more detailed analysis of just why this comic is so horrible, there's a link in the description to the Bad Webcomics Wiki entry. Check it out, it's a great laugh. So while things aren't going as horribly as one might expect in the webcomics area, things seem to be going terribly in the comic book world, for superheroes at least. Now, thankfully, there is a big beacon of light in this dark, dark situation that we Western comic fans find ourselves in. This comes from the country with some of the most insane, crazy shit on the planet. The land of the rising sun, Japan. Manga is a huge player in the world of comics. And from what I can tell, manga writers do not give a shit about social justice. They make all the well-endowed, buck-naked women they want. While Western comics have started to take a nosedive in quality over the past year or so, manga has not. I don't care if 90% of it is just 5-year-old girls being raped by giant squids and enjoying it. If there's anyone who could save us from the disaster that is social justice in comics, it's the Japanese. Godspeed, you brilliant, brilliant, crazy people.